My people, rise and transform your sorrow into anger! Never forget that we, the citizens of Zeon, are the chosen! We, the superior race, shall save mankind! Hail, Zeon!
Mobile Suit Gundam Federation vs. Zeon. This is a game I have wanted for a very long time because, first of all, I'm a huge fan of its sequel, Gundam vs. Zeta Gundam. I reviewed it a long time ago. Love that game because it's a combination of two things I absolutely love: Gundam and Gotcha Force. And this is a game that is very functionally similar, and I think the biggest thing is it makes me respect more and more what the sequel did, because they're very similar games, but you can definitely see how far the series progressed, like, immediately afterwards. Now, the story follows you as either some nameless Zeon pilot or some nameless Federation pilot, you can pick, which is kind of cool, rising through the ranks as you take part in the 1-year war. At least for the campaign. I assume the arcade mode is probably closer to the actual anime. I'm not entirely sure. I stuck to the campaign because, again, I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to the sequel, I fear, but I immediately jumped in kind of thinking it would be the same thing, and it wasn't. But it was equal parts good and bad. The idea was, campaign-wise, you go through and you select random missions that are all across the map, both in space and on the Irath, and then you basically slowly work your way through the 1-year war. However, the story itself is kind of lacking because while it is inherently the story of the 1-year war, it's mostly a background thing. Honestly, it's a thing that maybe every 5 or 10 missions you'll get like a message saying, okay, you know, Operation Odessa is happening. Oh, here's a message from Girin mourning the loss of Garma Zabi. You know, it feels like the story is kind of in the background in the loosest sense possible. What's more is you'll occasionally run into situations that sort of mimic episodes of the anime where you'd sort of be a side character trying to support the main characters in an assault or something. It's very, very slim, but it is there. Now, unlike Gundam vs. Zeta story-wise, where you basically picked a character, you ran through the story of that character's life, and then you tried to see if you could influence the outcome of the war, here you're more or less a bystander because the war's still going to happen the way it happened. As far as I got, anyway. I sort of played halfway through the war through both sides. You don't have really any influence over the war. You're more or less just an observer who happens to also be firing a gun. So story-wise, it's not great, but you do at least feel like you're witnessing parts of the story, and that, I think, is an important thing, and it does that relatively well. I just wish it was more prevalent and your interaction in the story itself actually kind of mattered a little bit more, you know? Now, the overall gameplay, kind of like I said, you pick a mission, and depending on the mission, it sort of changes the parameters. For example, one mission might be, you know, destroy all the enemies in the area. The next might be assisting a teammate, either just a random NPC or potentially a story character, in either surviving a fight or ultimately trying to do damage or accomplish some goal. Some missions are just survival. There's a good many number of missions. However, there is one problem with them, and that is they're semi-random, but the pool of actual randomized missions is very limited. For example, when I was playing as the Federation, I ran into the same mission 3 times in a row. But what is actually genuinely interesting is the fact that as you start out as some kind of like rookie pilot, you don't have access to a wide number of mobile suits. You have to start out with like a Zaku 1 or like a grounded gym and slowly work your way up by earning like just random promotions and gifts from your higher-ups. And that's cool if a little bit random. In fact, you know, when I was playing as the Zeons, perhaps this is more indicative of their situation in the war than anything, but later on, as the war progressed, I ended up constantly getting like Zaku 1s gifted to me, and it's like, you know, I've got like a Dom and a Goof, several aquatic suits, a myriad of Zaku 2s. I don't need any more Zaku 1s, thank you. I understand they're upgraded, do not care. But it is kind of cool that you sometimes also get expansions to your set arsenals for your mobile suits. For example, the Zaku 2 might start out with the machine gun, but can unlock the ability to select the bazooka. Certain mobile suits do have an expanded arsenal, and what's even cooler, if a little bit frustrating, I think this is a bit of a immersion sort of thing, but as you use your mobile suits in combat, they get damaged. and it takes time for them to repair, so you might not necessarily be able to use the same mobile suit 2 missions in a row. Or if you can, you'll be at a severe disadvantage because your mobile suit's already dinged up. It's going to take longer for it to repair back to full. And this really came to a head while I was playing as the Zeons during Operation Odessa, which was basically just a giant assault on the Zeon forces. I was running low on mobile suits because all my suits were really messed up by the end of it. It felt like just this giant long battle of attrition, and it felt really realistic. That was mind-blowingly cool. As awesome as all that is, I kind of have to go back to my intro, and again, I'm sorry, gotta compare it to the sequel a little bit, and that is, the roster for mobile suits is just kind of abysmal. Now, they're definitely sticking to the one-year war aspect of it, which means the Federation has the Gundam, gun cannon, gun tank, which can somehow operate in free-fall space, which is really weird, the gym, and then for some weird anachronisms, the ground gym and the ground Gundam. But weirdly enough, not the Easy 8. In fact, I think the inclusion of the ground Gundam and the ground gym was simply to balance the roster a little bit more because Zeon seem to have their full complement of one-year war suits. And that's kind of the weird thing. It's very limited to the one-year war suits, but it also wants to extend into the 8th MS team just to include a little bit more. And yet it's not willing to expand further to include the line of mobile suit variation suits that were created just to sell toys, and conceptual sketch suits that exist out there. I mean, heck, I understand they're completely different games, but Mobile Suit Gundam Journey to Jaburo, which came out before this, at least had the Blue Destiny and the Gundam Alex. This feels like it's staunchly defending the fact that it's very much an original Mobile Suit Gundam game, but it's willing to expand in weird little parts for balance, but not willing to go all the way out, and it does feel like a very limited roster because of it, and that sucks. That said, it is very cool to end up going out in a GOG with the Federation colors, or a gun cannon in the Zeon colors. It's weird, but it's cool. And I like that each of the mobile suits does feel fundamentally very different. For example, the Zaku 1 is going to feel completely different to a Dom. And I mentioned this during the Blue Destiny review where, you know, it feels like it's a definite upgrade, but they have certain different variations to it too. Like, the Dom is a naturally very slow, big, chunky suit. But once you start kicking in those dashes, suddenly you're moving all over the place and just destroying things. And the GOG's melee weapons are its claws, so unlike every other suit that has to pull out a heat hawk or a sword, it can just naturally just flow into melee combat. That's just amazing how much they put into what suits there are here. So while they are limited, and seriously, add the Blue Destiny, seriously, go out, add the F90. I don't care about how many different things you could have added. This is considered, apparently, Federation vs. Zeon Deluxe, which I assume means it's an actual upgrade from the arcade version. Oh, you could have had the Gym Sniper 2 and High GOG. Come on, it was the one cool aquatic suit. And the Gym Sniper 2 is, like, the best gym outside of the gym dominance, or if you really want to stretch your definition of gym, the Pale Rider or Stark Jagan. Seriously, they're just all awesome. And I mean, hell, Encounters in Space had that terrible wing custom. Add some stuff from other stuff as just more deluxe content that just might have no purpose being here from a narrative perspective, but would have just been cool to have. You know, go all out and make it the actual proper deluxe version with just all the bells and whistles. But that said, what you get here is good, and I mean, gameplay-wise, it is Gundam Gotcha Force. It's relatively fast-paced combat using armies of robots fighting armies of other robots. It's great. Now, the overall presentation is pretty good. I think it looks a lot better than Journey to Jaburo. Again, we're gonna have to use comparisons a little bit here, I think. Although I did notice one or two weird visual things. For whatever reason, the eyes on all of these Zeon suits kind of bug out. And unfortunately, it works for every mono-eyed suit in this game. And the audio design is pretty much perfect for a Gundam game. That said, it's hard to find a Gundam game that's done its audio wrong. You've got all the voice actors returning for their roles. Like, big and small characters all got their voices returned. It's awesome. And every song from the One Year War is absolutely in here. You've got that awesome song with those trumpets wailing in the background I love so much. That is absolutely going to be in this review, even though I've not recorded audio for it yet. I just love the soundtrack to Gundam. It's very 70s, and it works excellently, and it's still great here, leading to an overall somewhat mixed but generally favorable presentation. Now, if you want a copy of Mobile Suit Gundam Federation vs. Zeon, cheapest one I'm seeing right now, $22. That's a pretty good deal. You know, I think I can't get past the fact I've played the sequel, and I've played Gotcha Force, which, you know, they all run on the same engine. They're all very similar games, and they're all fun, but this one really does punctuate how far this series has progressed into the second one, and then immediately regressed into terribleness from the third game onwards. But still, this game is great, but it just feels kind of bare bones compared to the sequel, especially considering that, again, this is considered to be the deluxe version. So I don't know, I think they're stretching the definition of deluxe. At least include some coleslaw and french fries or something. Maybe a shake. But you know, Gundam Federation vs. Zeon is Gundam Gotcha Force, and that is pretty damn awesome in my books. And I have to give a big shout out and thank you to my girlfriend for sending this to show. I've been trying to get this game forever, and while it's certainly nowhere near as hard to find as the sequel, nor as expensive, it is an absolute must-have for any Gundam fan, or any Gotcha Force fan for that matter, because I mean, same game, and I mean, hell, if you like this game, go get Gotcha Force. It's expensive, but worth it. Got a lot of videos on it too. But you know, I don't think I can separate this game from its sequel. The sequel is just superior in so many different ways. It's rarer, it's a lot more expensive, but if you can afford it, man is it worth it. Because you basically get this entire game in that, plus a metric crap ton more. But if you can't afford it, or you've already played Gundam vs. Zeta ad nauseum, or maybe you've played the new Gundam vs. and you hated it, you'll probably like this because these games are awesome. It is still probably one of the best Gundam games I've ever played. I mean, the sequel is still the best game I've ever played. This one is a nice second, again, if we're not counting Gotcha Force, but it still lets you experience the 1 Year War, and it does it in a way that isn't clunky or slow or anything. It actually works compared to, say, Journey to Jaburo. So you know what? If you want a game that just represents the 1 Year War, I'm gonna say this is probably the best one, unless you get Zeta, which also has, you know, the 1 Year War bits in it, in which case, go get Zeta. It's awesome. But Mobile Suit Gundam Federation vs. Zeon, it is a pretty amazing game, especially for its low price. I would say this game is sort of an unsung masterpiece, but it's greatly overshadowed by its sequel, and of course, the excellent Gotcha Force. Holy crap, that gym is targeting me. That's not good. Okay, I think it stopped. Ground Gundam. Come on, Grabro. I don't care what you do, just get its attention. Oh, that gym is gonna hit me with just like straight shots from its pea shooter, and I'm gonna die. It'll be like the most embarrassing Zeon death ever. Aww.